In Nome, a small isolated town in Alaska, the winters were brutal. Snow covered the ground for months, and freezing winds sliced through the air, leaving residents dependent on their sled dogs to get around and carry essential supplies. Among these dogs was Balto, a mixed-breed Siberian husky known for his strength and endurance. Although he was not considered the natural leader of the team, Balto was trustworthy and loyal, always carrying out his work with dedication. Balto was part of Gunnar Kaasen's team, an experienced and respected driver. Gunnar appreciated Balto's determination, but preferred other dogs as leaders. However, there was something special about Balto that he couldn't ignore. A look of intelligence, as if the dog understood more than humans could perceive. Together, they faced the long journeys through the snow-covered terrain, carrying mail and supplies to the small villages around them. Despite the hostile environment, there was a tranquility in Balto and Gunnar's routine. They moved as a unit, synchronized by commands and the long silences of the frozen landscape. The snow-capped mountains and frozen rivers were challenging, but Balto always kept pace, pulling the sled with a strength that seemed inexhaustible. However, that winter of 1925 would not be like the others. As Balto and Gunnar braved the biting cold, something dark was approaching. An invisible and deadly threat was about to change their lives forever, testing the bond of trust between man and dog, and challenging them in ways no one could have predicted. The winter in Nome was as severe as ever, but the real danger was not the cold. An epidemic of diphtheria began to spread through the city, quickly affecting the population, especially the children. The symptoms were terrible: high fever, difficulty breathing, and intense pain. The local physician, Dr. Welch, diagnosed the situation and realized the gravity of the problem. The antitoxin serum supply was nearly exhausted, and without treatment, the disease could spread like wildfire, leading to catastrophe. The city panicked. Nome was isolated, and the weather conditions made any attempt at air transport impossible. Snowstorms blocked the passage, and the extreme cold made flights too risky. The only hope was to bring the serum from the city of Nanana, more than 1,000 miles away. So the residents of Nome decided to organize a great mercy run, a chain of dog sleds that would take turns fetching the medicine. Gunnar Kaasen was chosen to lead the last stretch of the route, considered the most dangerous and challenging. He knew it would be a risky journey, but he did not hesitate to accept the mission. Balto, despite being considered only a support dog, was included in the team. Gunnar was reluctant to entrust Balto with the leadership, but given the urgency, he had no choice. Balto seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation, keeping a close eye on the sled dogs as preparations were made. The town of Nome bid farewell to its heroes, with the hope that the courage and strength of the sled dogs could overcome the relentless winter. The lives of many children depended on this race against time, and Balto's bravery was about to be tested in a way no one could have foreseen. The race began, and the weather was against them. The sled teams faced fierce winds, heavy snow, and temperatures that dipped below -40 degrees Celsius. When it was Gunnar Kaasen and his team's turn to take the serum, visibility was virtually zero due to a blizzard that covered everything around them. Gunnar adjusted his goggles to try to see, but it was almost impossible to see more than a meter ahead. With the serum securely tied to the sled, Gunnar shouted commands, and the dogs began to move forward into the darkness of the storm. At first, he tried to lead with another dog, but the conditions were severe, and the team seemed hesitant at the difficulty of following the path. It was then that Balto, driven by a keen instinct, began to pull the sled with extra force, as if he knew exactly where to go. Gunnar, impressed, allowed Balto to take the lead. With every step, Balto showed surprising determination, moving forward confidently even without seeing the path. The sound of the storm and the biting cold threatened everyone's strength. But Balto didn't stop. He led the group with a confidence that even Gunnar didn't fully understand. It seemed as if the dog sensed the urgency of the mission, as if he knew that lives depended on his bravery. As the blizzard intensified, Gunnar struggled to maintain control of the sled. In a moment of desperation, he nearly lost his balance, but Balto kept pace, pulling the sled away from a dangerous fall. Gunnar looked at the dog and realized something he had never seen before. A true leader was emerging in Balto, guiding the team with a strength that came from within. The cold and fatigue were relentless, but Balto, driven by his instinct and loyalty, kept going. The team knew that the journey was far from over, but at that moment, all eyes were on the unexpected leader who had taken command. The journey was becoming increasingly difficult. Gunnar Kaasen knew that the most treacherous stretch lay ahead, Topkik, an area known for its biting winds and thin ice that could break at any moment. The cold seemed to worsen with each step, and fatigue was beginning to take its toll on the dogs. Gunnar, sensing the risk of continuing, considered pausing to avoid accidents. He glanced at Balto, who was in the lead, waiting for a decision. But Balto did not hesitate. With a firm pull, he continued forward, as if he knew that stopping there could be fatal. Balto pulled the sled with unwavering determination, defying the wind that almost knocked them over. Gunnar struggled to stay upright, gripping the reins tightly. The ice beneath the dog's feet creaked, threatening to break at any moment. The darkness of the night and the blinding snow made it impossible to see the path. But Balto pressed forward confidently, following an instinct that seemed supernatural. He could smell the route and identify hidden landmarks beneath the snow, guiding the team as if he knew the path by heart. At a critical moment, the sled hit a steep slope and began to sway dangerously. Gunnar tried to control the load, but the ice gave way under one of the runners, causing the sled to tip sideways. The serum almost fell into the snow, but Balto, with a quick movement, steadied the sled, pulling it back on the right track. Gunnar was speechless, realizing that without Balto's instinct and bravery, they would have lost everything in that moment. The group continued forward, exhausted but guided by Balto's unwavering strength. Finally, they saw the lights of Nome City on the horizon. Balto did not slow down, pulling the sled with all the energy he had left. When they reached the city, the silence was broken by the shouts of joy and relief from the crowd. People gathered around them, applauding and crying with emotion. Balto stood there, panting, for a moment, looking around, as if he realized the significance of what he had just done. Gunnar climbed down from the sled and knelt beside Balto, patting his head gratefully. "You brought us home, boy," he whispered. In that moment, Balto was no longer just a sled dog. He was a true hero, a leader who had saved an entire town. Balto and Gunnar's arrival in Nome brought a sense of relief that spread throughout the town. The serum was delivered on time, and doctors quickly began treating the infected. Children suffering from diphtheria received life-saving doses. The fear that had gripped Nome began to dissipate, giving way to tears of joy and gratitude. Balto, still tired and panting, stood steadfastly by Gunnar's side, as if he knew his mission had been accomplished. News of Balto's heroic deed and the Great Mercy Race soon spread across the country. Newspapers told the story of the dog, who led the sled team through snowstorms and treacherous ice to save an entire town. Balto became a symbol of courage, loyalty, and determination. He was no longer just a sled dog, he was a national hero. To honor his bravery, a statue of Balto was erected in New York City's Central Park, with the inscription, "Endurance, Fidelity, Intelligence." Thousands of people visited the monument, inspired by the story of a dog who overcame all odds to save lives. Gunnar, now recognized as one of the great sled dogs, continued to speak of Balto's bravery, always emphasizing that the true hero of that journey was the dog who led the team. Balto spent the rest of his days by Gunnar's side, receiving the love and recognition he deserved. Although scarred by the difficult journey, he lived his final years in peace, knowing that he had done his duty. His story has lived on, told and retold for generations, as an example of unbreakable loyalty and the power of the spirit of sacrifice.